Elira had studied humans for most of her adult life, yet she had never seen one with her own eyes. She sat alone in the observation chamber, the soft blue lights of the station reflecting off the transparent data screens floating around her. Numbers, timelines, and predictions moved slowly across them, but she no longer needed to read them. She already knew what they said. Every report ended the same way. Humanity survived. Not just survived, but expanded. Civilizations older and wiser than humans had faded into history. Species with stronger bodies, longer lives, and greater intelligence had vanished quietly. Yet humans, fragile and short-lived, continued to rise again and again. Wars failed to end them. Plagues only hardened them. Even their own mistakes became fuel for growth. To Elira's people, that was terrifying. Her species valued balance. They avoided conflict and controlled their growth carefully. They believed the future should be predictable and gentle. Humans were neither. Elira's long fingers tightened slightly around the edge of her chair as another projection appeared. It showed a possible future 100 years ahead. Humans were not rulers in this image. They were builders, engineers, coordinators. Everywhere they went, change followed. She swallowed. They don't even mean to do it, she whispered to herself. That was the worst part. Humans did not spread through force alone. They spread through cooperation, curiosity, and something no model could fully explain: hope. Even in the darkest simulations, humans kept moving forward, fixing what was broken, helping where no help was asked for. Elira closed the screen with a slow motion of her hand. Her chest felt tight, a physical sign of stress her species rarely experienced. She was afraid of a future shaped by a species that refused to stop. A soft chime echoed through the chamber. "Elira of Lithar," the station intelligence said calmly, "you have been selected for the Interstellar Exchange Observation Program." Her breath stopped. "No," she said quietly. The screen shifted, displaying official approval symbols. Her assignment location appeared beneath them. Human Frontier Research Station. Her heart beat faster. She stood so quickly that her chair slid back across the smooth floor. "There must be an error," she said. "I requested reassignment weeks ago." "There is no error," the intelligence replied. "Your expertise in human future modeling makes you an ideal candidate." Elira stared at the words until they blurred. She had spent years warning others about humans. Now she was being sent to live among them. "I am not prepared," she said, her voice shaking despite her effort to remain calm. "I observe from distance. That is my role." "The purpose of the program is direct experience," the intelligence answered. "Departure is scheduled in 12 cycles." 12 cycles. To a human, that would feel like days. To Elira, it felt like a countdown to something she did not understand. She left the chamber in silence, her steps slow and unsteady. Other members of her species moved through the halls, graceful and calm, unaware of the storm growing inside her. That night, Elira did not rest. She reviewed human recordings instead. Real moments, not predictions. Humans laughing loudly in shared spaces. Humans crying openly over loss. Humans standing together after disasters, faces tired but determined. They felt too much. They cared too much. That was why they survived. And that was why they were dangerous. When the transport vessel finally arrived at the frontier station, Elira's fear had settled into something colder. Acceptance did not mean peace, but it allowed her to breathe. The station floated near the edge of explored space, far from major trade routes. It looked unfinished, its structure uneven and marked by repairs. Elira noticed that immediately. Her people would have abandoned such a place. As the airlock opened, she prepared herself. She expected guards, officials, at least a formal reception. Instead, a single human stood waiting. He was tall compared to her, but not imposing. His clothing was simple, worn at the edges. His hair was dark and messy, as if he had forgotten to fix it. When he saw her, his face lit up with a wide, open smile. "You must be Elira," he said. "I'm Evan, thanks for coming." "Thanks," she froze. "You thank me?" she asked carefully. "Yeah," he replied. "I know this isn't exactly comfortable." He stepped aside, giving her space rather than reaching for her or crowding her path. Elira noticed that too. "I was told humans would be more direct," she said. Evan laughed softly. "We get that a lot." He gestured down the corridor. "I'll show you around, no rush." As they walked, Elira observed everything. The station hummed with quiet activity. Humans moved with purpose but greeted one another warmly. Some nodded, some smiled. One waved at her, she did not wave back. "Why is this station so far out?" she asked. Evan shrugged. "Someone has to be here." "That is not an efficient answer," she said. He smiled again, smaller this time. "Most human answers are." They reached a window overlooking space. Beyond it, stars stretched endlessly, beautiful and cold. "This place was supposed to be temporary," Evan said. "But a lot of species use this region now, so we stayed." "Without ownership?" Elira asked. "Without ownership," he confirmed, "just maintenance." That word echoed in her mind. Maintenance. Not control, not expansion, just keeping things working. As hours passed, Elira found herself less tense, though her fear did not disappear. Evan did not lecture her or defend humanity's reputation. He answered her questions honestly, even when they painted humans in a harsh light. "Yes," he said when she asked about wars. "We've had many." "Yes," he admitted when she asked about destruction. "We've caused a lot of it." "Then why do you keep going?" she asked finally. Evan looked out the window before answering. "Because stopping doesn't fix anything." The words were simple, too simple, yet Elira felt something shift inside her. That night, alone in her assigned quarters, she recorded her first personal log. "I arrived expecting fear," she said quietly. "Instead, I was met with kindness I do not understand. This does not erase the data. Humanity remains unpredictable. But perhaps my models are missing something." She paused, then added, "I remain afraid, but for the first time I am also curious." Far away, the future continued to move toward humanity. And Elira had taken her first step toward it. Elira woke slowly to the sound of soft alarms. They were not loud or sharp. Human stations used gentle tones, designed to wake without fear. Even that detail felt strange to her. On her home world, alarms were rare. Problems were solved before they became emergencies. Humans seemed to expect trouble and prepared for it calmly. She sat up on the narrow bed and looked around her quarters. The room was simple, clean, nothing fancy. A small desk, a storage unit, a window looking into space. She had learned that many humans lived like this for years without complaint. She still did not understand that. When she stepped into the main corridor, the station already felt alive. Humans moved quickly, carrying tools and data pads. Some looked tired, but no one looked angry. They spoke to each other with easy voices, sharing small jokes as they worked. Evan was waiting near the junction, leaning against a wall and reading a report. "Good morning," he said when he saw her. "I hope you slept okay." "Yes," she answered. "The station noises were comforting," he smiled. "You get used to them. They remind us everything is still running." They walked together toward the engineering level. Elira had asked to observe human work routines, and Evan had agreed without hesitation. "This station repairs systems for many species," he explained as they walked. "Power relays, navigation beacons, emergency shelters, stuff no one wants to maintain forever." "Why do humans do it?" Elira asked. "There is little reward." Evan thought for a moment. "Because if we don't, someone else might suffer." She looked at him. "Even if you never meet them." "Especially then," he said. They reached a wide room filled with machinery. Humans worked in teams, passing tools, checking readings, adjusting systems. Elira watched closely. There was no single leader giving constant orders. Everyone seemed to know their role. "They trust each other," she said quietly. Evan nodded. "Trust keeps us alive out here." As days passed, Elira followed Evan through many parts of the station. She observed meetings, repairs, and quiet moments where humans shared food and stories. She learned that many of them had families far away. Some had lost homes to disasters. Others had simply chosen this life. They were not heroes. They were just people. That realization confused her more than fear ever had. One evening, as they stood near the observation window, Elira finally asked a question she had been holding inside. "Do humans fear their own future?" she asked. Evan did not answer right away. "Yes," he said at last. "All the time." "Then why continue expanding?" she asked. "Why not slow down?" He rested his hands on the railing. "Because the future comes whether we want it or not. We can either face it or hide from it." She thought of her own people, how carefully they avoided risk, how they believed stability was safety. "What if facing it makes things worse?" she asked. "Then we try again," Evan said simply. The next cycle, everything changed. Elira was in the data center, reviewing station logs when the floor vibrated beneath her feet. Lights flickered. The gentle hum of the station dropped into silence. Then alarms sounded. These were not gentle. She froze as emergency lights flooded the corridors with red glow. Her communicator activated automatically. "All personnel report status," a voice called out. Elira's breathing quickened. She pressed herself against the wall, her heart racing. "Elira," Evan's voice came through moments later. "Are you safe?" "Yes," she said, forcing her voice to stay calm. "What is happening?" "External power relay failure," he replied. "We're working on it. Stay where you are." But she did not stay. Against her fear, Elira moved. She followed the corridor signs toward engineering, her long steps uneven. Humans rushed past her, focused and fast. No one pushed her aside. No one shouted at her to leave. When she reached the main control area, she saw the damage. A massive section of the power grid had failed. Without it, the station would lose life support in several hours. Worse, nearby habitats, used by smaller alien communities, relied on the station's systems to maintain their own environments. Elira saw the data. Thousands of lives depended on this station. Evan stood at the center, giving instructions. His calm presence surprised her. He was not afraid, at least not visibly. "The relay is unstable," someone said. "We can reroute, but the manual override is damaged." "I'll go," Evan said without hesitation. Elira's eyes widened. "Go where?" "Outside," he answered. "Someone has to reset it directly." "That is extremely dangerous," she said. He nodded. "I know." Another human stepped forward. "I can do it." Evan shook his head. "You have kids, I don't." The word struck Elira like a physical blow. "This is illogical," she said sharply. "Your life has value regardless." Evan looked at her then, really looked at her. "So do theirs," he said gently. Before she could respond, he turned away, pulling on protective gear. Elira watched in silence as Evan prepared for the spacewalk. Her chest felt tight again, but this time it was not just fear. It was something else, concern. She followed the operation from the control room. Evan moved carefully through the cold void, his figure small against the endless dark. Each motion was precise. Every second mattered. Something went wrong. A sudden energy surge sent his body spinning. Alarms flared. The room filled with tense voices. "Stabilizer offline." "Evan, respond." For a terrifying moment there was only silence. Elira felt her legs weaken. She gripped the console to stay standing. Then his voice returned, strained but steady. "I'm okay," he said. "Relay reset in progress." Minutes passed like hours. Finally, the systems came back online. Lights brightened. The station's hum returned, stronger than before. Cheers filled the room. Evan returned safely, exhausted but alive. As he removed his helmet, Elira stepped forward without thinking. "You could have died," she said, her voice trembling. He smiled weakly. "But I didn't." "That is not the point," she replied. "You risked everything for beings who may never know your name." Evan met her gaze. "That's okay." She stared at him, searching for deception. There was none. That night, Elira could not sleep. She reviewed the crisis again and again. The data did not match her models. Humans were supposed to act in self-interest, driven by emotion and ambition. Yet Evan had chosen others over himself. Not for glory, not for reward, just because it felt right. In her private log, her hands shook as she recorded her thoughts. "I witnessed a human risk his life today," she said softly. "Not to conquer, not to claim, but to protect. My fear remains, but it is changing shape." She paused, then added, "Perhaps the future I feared is not the one humanity is building." Outside her window, the stars remained unchanged. But inside Elira, something had shifted forever. The station returned to its normal rhythm, but Elira did not. Days passed after the crisis, yet her thoughts stayed fixed on that moment in the control room, when a human had stepped into danger without hesitation. She continued her observations, continued her logs, but something inside her had changed in a way she could not measure. Evan survived, recovered, and returned to work as if nothing special had happened. That, more than anything, confused her. She found him in the maintenance bay one cycle later, adjusting a panel with slow, careful movements. His face still showed signs of exhaustion, dark shadows under his eyes, but his expression was calm. "You should still be resting," Elira said. He glanced up. "I am. This is light duty." She watched him for a moment, then asked, "Do humans always return so quickly after nearly dying?" He thought about it. "Not always, but we don't like stopping." "That is unhealthy," she said honestly. He smiled. "Probably." They worked in silence for a while. Elira stood nearby observing, but her attention drifted. Finally, she spoke again. "Evan," she said, "did you feel fear when you went outside?" "Yes," he answered without hesitation. "Then why did you go?" He set his tool down and turned toward her. "Because fear doesn't mean you shouldn't act. It just means you understand the risk." Elira lowered her gaze. Among her people, fear was a warning to stop, to retreat, to wait until conditions were perfect. Humans waited for nothing. The day of her departure arrived sooner than she expected. The exchange program had a fixed duration. Her superiors had already requested her final report. She stood in her quarters, carefully organizing her data. Charts, logs, recorded conversations, predictive models. The door chimed. "Come in," she said. Evan stepped inside, holding two small containers. "Food," he explained. "A human custom before long trips." She accepted one hesitantly. "Thank you." They sat near the window, watching stars drift past. For a while, neither spoke. "You're leaving tomorrow," Evan said. "Yes," he nodded. "Did you find what you were looking for?" She considered the question carefully. "I found what I was not looking for." He laughed softly. "That's usually how it goes." There was another silence. This one felt heavier. "My report will influence future policy," Elira said. "It may shape how the galaxy treats humanity." "That sounds like a lot of pressure," Evan replied. "It is," she said, "and I am afraid." He looked at her, surprised. "Of us?" "No," she said, "of being wrong." He leaned back slightly. "Being wrong isn't the end, it's how we learn." That simple answer settled something inside her. The next day, Elira boarded the transport vessel. As the station grew smaller behind her, she felt a strange ache in her chest. She did not name it. When she arrived at her home world, she was summoned immediately. The council chamber was vast and quiet. Elder figures sat in a wide circle, their expressions unreadable. Elira stood alone at the center. "You have completed your observation," one elder said. "Present your findings." Elira activated the central display. She showed them the familiar data first: human growth curves, expansion rates, survival statistics. The elders nodded. They had seen this before. Then she showed them new recordings. Humans repairing stations no one claimed. Humans sharing resources without demand. Humans risking their lives to protect strangers. "This is anecdotal," an elder said. "Yes," Elira replied. "So is fear." Murmurs spread through the chamber. "Our models show humanity becoming dominant," another elder said. They may, Elira answered, but dominance does not always mean destruction. She paused, steadying herself. Our predictions failed because they measured power, not intent. Humans are not driven only by conquest. They are driven by response. When something breaks, they fix it. When someone suffers, they act. That makes them dangerous, an elder argued. It makes them responsible, Elira said. She spoke of Evan. She did not use his name. She spoke of a human who chose others over himself, without orders or reward. If we treat humanity as a threat, she concluded, we will create the future we fear. If we stand beside them, we help shape it. Silence filled the chamber. Finally, the eldest among them spoke. And what do you believe, Elira? She took a deep breath. I believe humanity's future is not something to escape, she said. It is something to participate in. The council dismissed her without immediate judgment. Days passed, then weeks. Elira waited. When the decision came, it was quiet. A single message, cooperative status approved. Her legs nearly gave out in relief. Years passed after that. Human influence spread across the galaxy, but not as conquerors. They became builders, mediators, caretakers of forgotten places. Other species joined them, not because they were forced, but because it worked. Elira watched from afar, then closer. She became a liaison, a bridge between cultures. She traveled often, sometimes returning to that same frontier station. Evan was still there, older. A little more tired, still smiling. The station had grown, not in size but in life. Many species passed through now. Children played in shared halls, voices mixed, laughter echoed. Elira stood by the observation window one day, watching a group of human and alien students working together. She remembered the fear she once felt. It seemed distant now. Humanity had not softened. They were still intense, still emotional, still stubborn. But they had chosen care over control. Elira placed her hand against the glass. The future had not changed because humans were less powerful. It had changed because someone chose not to fear them. And that choice, she knew, had made all the difference.